Pranakasha live stream.
Hey folks, it's Matt at Pranakasha Productions, and today we are talking with Florian Behnsen, an incredibly talented composer and filmmaker. So we're going to have a great time. Before we get going, be sure to give us some likes down there, press the like button, and if you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to subscribe to the channel. And also, don't be shy, leave a comment, Leave a comment down there, start a conversation, all these things, liking and subscribing and comments, all those different ways that you can interact with this video and with Pranakasha Productions helps us out, makes YouTube happy with us, and the AI bots will think well of us, and all will be good in the world. So Florian Behnsen, I met you, I believe, through the Delian Society. Is that true?
If
Delian
I
Society of
remember,
Composers?
yeah, there was a Facebook page also with Joseph Ford.
Right, exactly. Joseph Dylan
And
Ford.
yes, exactly. Who sadly passed a few years back.
Yeah, of a heart attack. Just kind of pretty much out of the blue. Yeah, that was
I
a
was
real
also
shocker.
completely surprised. I
Yeah,
was completely surprised, really. Very sad.
yeah, that was a huge blow to because he pretty much, I mean, he was the heart and soul of the whole Delian Society. He put so much work into it. Yeah, he founded it.
Oh, really?
And yeah,
Okay.
and he of course was a composer as well. And he was like basically through the Delian Society, he was like the champion of what he liked to call historicist music, historical composers who would compose in established styles. Like he, for example, he wrote a concerto for harpsichord and orchestra, Baroque style, that we actually performed as a string quartet and harpsichord. That was really neat, and so
I
on.
heard that performance. Yeah, I heard it not too long ago, actually.
Yeah, well, you're like me. I mean, I say like not too long ago, and it's really like 10 years ago.
Yes, time is also. It feels sometimes the same for me. That it's not too long ago, and then wait, that was 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's just flying by. So, so you're a composer, and then of course you're really a enthusiast in the sci-fi genre too.
Yes, yeah.
And you live in Berlin.
I do. Since interestingly, since 1st of May for exactly 10 years. So 1st of May, I have a little celebration usually, because that's when I came here.
Wow. Okay.
On Witches' Night, actually, which is the night before.
Believe it or not, the only place in Europe I've visited so far is Berlin. Yeah.
And
in fact, I got invited to an international music celebration back in I believe it was in the late 80s, because it was before the Berlin Wall had come down. And it was in Berlin. It was put on by the International Suzuki Organization, the Suzuki Method by Dr. Junichi Suzuki.
Yeah.
I got invited. I submitted a tape, and I got invited to come and play first movement of the Brahms Violin Concerto in a recital.
Nice.
And I stayed at in a youth hostel. For I think maybe 10 marks per night or something. Very cheap.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, the amazing thing is, I don't want to get us way off track, but I was there before the Berlin Wall came down. So like when we went around and toured a little bit, like I went to Checkpoint Charlie. Do you know what that is?
And I live not too far away from it.
Okay. And then I got temporary passage into East Berlin for a day. And it was amazing because I got to see the Berlin Wall from both sides.
Impressive.
Yeah. And the story I always like to tell is when I was in East Berlin, I was at an observation post, and I was standing there with a couple other people who lived in East Berlin, and we were gazing at the wall that was maybe 100 yards or 200 yards away from us, and there was like barbed wire fence in between, and there were these guard towers
Mm,
with soldiers with machine guns in them and searchlights,
mm,
and from the east side, the wall was completely just painted white, and there was no
yeah.
graffiti on it or anything. And then there was this big um, zone in between, and I was pretty sure like there might even be like landmines or something there because it's very high security.
Yeah. Yeah,
And we were
they
looking
had mines
across
there.
it, and I realized, and I was looking at the person right next to me that was also looking across to see what was on the other side. And I was like, okay, this is really surreal because I I can freely go across and I know exactly what's on the other side. Whereas this person here is probably can't. So all they can do is imagine what's over there. And yet this person is like 2 inches
Mm,
away from me.
mm,
And what makes me different from them, It was a real surreal moment, you know?
mm, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Although there's this interesting story my parents used to tell me. I grew up in West Germany,
Uh-huh.
and near the inner German border at first. My father used to work in a like what's it called? They called it Flarak, which is like a missile anti-air missile defense, which they had at the inner German border. That's where he worked as a radar operator at first.
Oh, okay.
And the interesting thing was that, of course, both sides of Germany had their television, and you could receive the television of each side, basically. So you could see, like, okay, there was some news in West Germany, and then East Germany would make some news about it and portray it in the correct light. Like the capitalists are trying to hide something from you because um, there was only one area in Germany, and in German, it's called das Tal der Ahnungslosen, which is the Valley of the Unknowing, where they could not receive West German television. The whole rest of the GDR was capable of knowing exactly how West Germany was like. Like they got all the TV and stuff. You know,
Wow.
yeah, it's one of these things. For example, when you look at Korea, um, I'm just digesting shortly, where North Korea is putting up all these like transmitting stations to send how you call it like distortions, so they can't. So people in North Korea cannot see South Korean or any television from anywhere.
Oh,
And
jamming.
East Germany, yeah, jamming,
Okay.
exactly. And East Germany never managed to do that. So most East Germaners really knew what they were missing or what they didn't have and how their regime
Interesting.
liked it. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it was just such a trip. I mean, there was also things where like there were literally buildings that half the building was in East Germany and half the building was in West
Mm.
Germany, and you could go into the
Yeah.
building and then you would hit this room where like you couldn't cross. There were
Hmm.
these really weird things like that. Also, there was a lot of areas where even on the west side of the wall, there would be a guard tower just over the wall and like maybe 10 or 20 yards away that would be up over the wall, and there would be like a guy again with a machine gun or something with little spy glasses sitting there observing you,
Hmm.
trying to figure out what you're doing.
Hmm.
It was so wild. And at the time, none of us knew that the wall would be coming down in a couple years. We thought it was there forever.
Mm.
So it's
Yeah,
just
my father told me if you had told him, I think it was like in April or May of 1989, that the wall would be coming down within a couple of months, he would have been like, yeah, good joke. Nobody knew.
yep,
It
that's just
was
wild.
yeah, it was. I still remember it partly as a kid. I was 8 at the time, 8 or 9. And like before in school, when you learned about Germany on maps, it was always, okay, this is this Germany, and then we have the other Germany. And suddenly, when I went to third grade, it was like, okay, now we have one Germany. That was interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, and we
Yeah.
had this. There was this fun anecdote. Our teachers were like, now you all need to have an East German pen pal. And so they made us like write little letters, and then they put them on balloons in the hope they would fly east. Of course, they only made it to the next park, and then they picked them up in secret, and yeah,
Ah,
they arrived. Yeah, it was an interesting time, I would
yeah.
say.
Well, I mean, like how I was saying, I mean, you could probably make a letter, fold it into a paper airplane, and just fly it over the top of the wall in certain spots.
Mm.
That's really wild. So I
They
remember even
will.
when I was there,
Mm.
Berlin was a very modern city, like very new architecture, and they had a very advanced subway system and everything.
Mm.
And these cafes, really, of course, this was back in 1989, but I mean, you had cafes that were really fancy. That do they still have the thing where they don't have chairs; they just have tables that you stand at?
Mm.
Is that a thing
Like
now?
probably they still have some of those, yeah, where you
Okay.
just go for coffee and then you just leave. But it really depended on where you were in Berlin, because I remember I live in East Berlin at the moment near
Oh,
Alexanderplatz.
oh, wow. Okay.
And it's interesting. A couple of my friends are East Berliners, and they were also like pretty young when the wall came down. And they all told me that when they went into West Berlin and they looked at it, because West Berlin was an enclave, basically, it was surrounded by East Germany. So everything that came in was like checked, double checked. And if the officials said like, oh yeah, you can wait for the concrete for a couple of more months or something. So West Berlin when the wall came down was actually really run down as well. And
Oh,
they were sort of
really?
like, well, this is the West. We thought the West is like totally amazing. I mean, they kept a number of areas looking really nice, like
Hmm.
Kurfürstendamm. That's like a really, how you call it, like very high class area. It always has been. It's the center of West Berlin, basically.
Okay. Maybe that's where
Mm.
I was because what I remember, I mean, for
Mm.
one thing, I swear there was like a museum on every single block, and there were
Yeah.
beautiful art museums and all
Mm.
kinds of stuff. You could just walk everywhere. And
Mm.
the other really interesting thing that there were a lot of places, basically all of Berlin was rebuilt since World War II.
Yeah.
However, they would intentionally leave certain buildings or certain areas the way they were after the war, which is basically just almost just rubble, or you'd see buildings that still had bullet holes in them and things, or like that were
Mm.
half destroyed, and they intentionally left them that way so that you would always remember what everyone had gone through. I don't know if that's still the same now or
No, no, because Berlin is one of the city where so many people want to move. Like for example, when I came here 10 years ago, sort of the happy time of Berlin was already pretty much over in a way, but it was still really affordable. Like before I lived in Frankfurt am Main, which is like the financial capital of Germany, and
okay.
it's immensely expensive. And when I came here, suddenly it's like, oh, everything is really nice and cheap. Like I can just almost rent an entire apartment for the same price I could rent something in Frankfurt, basically.
Hmm.
And now, like when I look at prices, when I sometimes think, okay, I would like to live in a more quiet neighborhood because I live really in the city center.
Hmm.
And it's like, nope, not possible. Rent is incredibly high because people want to live here. So they're currently building stuff all over the city.
Wow.
Yeah, it
Hmm.
has changed a lot, even in the 10 years I've been here.
Wow.
So mm, it's
Amazing.
still a very wonderful city, to be honest. It still has like this vibe that it had from before, but at the same time, a lot is changing.
Okay. And the vibe I think is like very modern but also very arts centric
Mhm.
and okay.
Yeah, that's still the case.
That's
Fortunately, I have to say.
that's neat. Wow.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm.
Well, that was a huge tangent that we went on, but that was
It's
a
fine.
big um so I'd like to talk about um the video that you sent me, which was maybe we can. Oh, come on.
Okay.
God.
Let's do
That was that like a senior project or something when you were in school, or what was that?
That was my diploma, basically. When I went to university, I was really into animated movies,
Okay.
and the version I sent you is an updated version because I did my diploma in 2009 in
Okay.
a place called Darmstadt, which is very close to Frankfurt am Main, and I wanted to do an animated film.
Okay.
And so, but I kind of miscalculated my time, to be honest. And so a couple of years later, I thought, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to redo the entire film, but I'm going to update it so it has a
Okay. So,
better
and then what,
quality.
folks,
And
what we're
that's the
talking about is it's a film in English is called The Journey to E36. And then how would you say that in German?
Die Reise zum E36.
Okay, let's see if I can say that. Die Reise zum E36. Is that any close?
It was. You started off really good.
Okay. Is that your voice in the film as the astronaut?
No, that was an actor I recorded, and
Okay.
we had this thing that he had a little what you call it, like these devices you use to like dictate stuff to someone. I don't know the English word for this. And we went into a basement and just recorded his entire voice there, like
Great.
all the lines I'd written for him. And later I thought that it would be interesting because the movie is mainly visuals and music.
That's your music too,
And
right?
yeah, the music is mine. And I wanted to have this feeling that all the audio that you hear is basically inside his helmet, because he's
Right.
in a space helmet, so you don't have anything else. There's no other sound, basically.
Right. So he's like this. I'm looking at the artifact, and I'm seeing.
Yes, I
these.
also sped up the tape sometimes, or just sliced it a little bit up to make it sound like it's distorted, it's a little bit fragmented, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Great. It came off perfect. I really loved it.
Thank you.
Like, do you want to show some clips? I could put some clips of it right in here if you want.
I mean, you could show the opening.
Okay. So, what I'll do is, I'll play around on my iPad right now, and then I'll just edit it in, and we can actually show it. So it's okay. So now we're looking at. Can you hear that a little bit?
I can hear the Collegno strings, yeah.
So we're looking at these planets. Now this is a different solar system, right?
Yes.
Vor 14 Monaten entdeckten Beobachtungssatelliten dieses Objekt. Es bewegt sich mit hoher Geschwindigkeit in das Innere unseres Systems und wird den 7. Planeten sehr nah passieren.
Is this astronaut from Earth?
Über das Objekt liegen nicht vor.
He's human, yes.
Jedoch sind wir der Ansicht, dass es sich nicht um einen Himmelskörper handelt. Es wurde daher angeordnet, dass 2 Einheiten auf einen Abfangkurs geleitet werden.
The drums are really dramatic from the iPad.
Yeah, here it comes. Yeah, I think this works really well. The thing that I really like about this, of course, part of doing it as sort of stills, quasi-animated stills, is a budgetary thing, I assume, and
time mostly.
Were you the artist?
I did I did all the animation. It's all hand animated. It was colorized on a computer. I had a friend who helped me.
So you made all these paintings?
Yep, together with him.
Beautiful. Wow, that must have been a huge amount of work.
It was like animation. I remember I animated it over Christmas 2008. And I remember, because I was home at my parents' place at the time, we had a semester break, and I had to present the diploma in February 2009. And I remember the entire semester break, I was just sitting in this room drawing, and from morning till evening. And I remember my New Year 2009 was basically, I woke up at 23:30, had a little dinner with my parents, had a glass of something, and then I just went back to bed because I was so tired. And and then painting everything and compositing it took a month, I think.
Wow, that's pretty fast, actually. Wow.
Yeah, after a while, because also the color palette is very, very limited. So after a while, you have everything that you really need ready, and then it's just going through everything. You clean all the drawings on the PC, and then you just go through the things very automated.
Okay, are these oil paintings or watercolors or?
No, Photoshop.
Oh, it's all digital.
It's all digital, yeah. It
Wow.
was easier. It was easier.
Okay.
As much as I love hand animated things, because it looks a little rougher, for coloring things, I do prefer just using a computer. It's much, much easier than doing it by hand. If you look at making offs of animated films where they do it really old school, that takes a lot of time.
And a huge staff usually, right?
Yeah, you also have to, I think you also have to use with transparent paper. So you can work with ordinary paper, and you have there's a lot more that goes into that. So, and that was just okay, you know what, I'm going to hand animate it. It's that big piece of paper, basically, or stack of paper that I still have in a drawer here. So, and everything else, I'll just on a computer. It's much easier.
Wow. Well, I thought it really worked. Actually, the visuals I thought worked really well, because I mean, it really conveyed the feeling of that you're alone out in space, all by yourself. Kind of like 2001 Space Odyssey, a lot of that feel. So, and then of course the music fits really well. So you just get this eerie feeling of just being way out there, really far away from everything.
Thank you.
And it all worked really, even though you some of the animation techniques are in some ways simple. For this story, it works really well. Almost better than if it was actually live action, you know what I mean?
Yes. First, thank you very much. It was because it's just a 10-minute long movie. So I thought it would be good to have a mysterious story that doesn't really resolve, or you have to think about what's really going on, leaving it more open and up to interpretation, what actually happens.
Yeah.
So, and I like the idea. For example, I really love the first Star Trek movie. I think the motion picture, I think that one is the most Star Trek of all the Star Trek movies.
Really?
Because it really deals with the unknown. And I was greatly inspired by the first Star Trek movie when I did that, the Journey to E36.
And of course, it was inspired by 2001 Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
I just watched it a week or two ago, actually, the remake, or the remastering. So
I haven't seen that one yet.
Yeah. Wow.
And I'm a huge fan of Jerry Goldsmith. And I thought, I didn't want to, copy his style, but I wanted to have something musically that has a similar atmosphere, very mysterious, but also very grand in a way.
Yeah.
A lot of sci-fi films are scored very, very minimally, but since I thought it's mostly going to be visuals and music anyway, so the music should have a fun story that the person who helped me with the movie, or who did it with me, Michael, told me once. It was only shown once at a like some convention somewhere, or film festival, a small one, and he went there. And it was interesting because most of the movies were like art movies with piano soundtrack, and then they had this thing like with this bombastic soundtrack playing, and everybody was, I think, pretty like must have been very interesting, because before it was just quiet piano, minimal electronic stuff, and then suddenly comes along the Reise zum E36, and it just
You know, I mean, I really like this. I feel like, you know, you re-released it in 2011.
Mhm.
But I swear, I mean, it would stand up today. I think there's a lot of people that would really dig it, you know, even now. Did you guys do much marketing at all? I mean, once you were done with the project, did you do much to promote it?
No. I was like when I remade it, I was going through like a lot of stuff. I just had moved. I was living in Hamburg before, and I had moved cities. I redid the movie in between. I was moving again and cutting it in the meantime, and it kind of got lost, unfortunately.
Okay.
That's the sad part. And recently I realized when I moved my files to the computer that I must have deleted the files at some point even. So that is the only version that still exists. Yes. I was looking at it like, I must have them somewhere. Nope.
Okay. Oh, wow. So you don't even have the original stills or anything anymore?
No.
Oh, that's a tragedy.
Yeah, it is, because I had saved it, like maybe I still have it somewhere, I hope, because I usually save my files like 3 to 5 times, but I haven't found it yet.
Oh. Oh, no. Yeah, this is... Well, that, of course, I mean, that's the thing, is a lot of artists don't promote themselves, you know, and they put out something that's really good. I think this is really good. And then expect it to just kind of sell itself, and everybody will magically find out about it and love it, and you'll be world famous and all that. And then when that doesn't happen, you're like, oh, then you get, and then you lose your inspiration. You think, well, I guess it wasn't as good as I thought it was. And then you kind of go into your hole and mope for however long. But the case is really more like, no, I mean, you got to go out and promote it, like take it to Comic-Con and show it to people, or somehow figure out ways to get people to actually even just look at it and consider it. And then they're like, oh, wow, this is really neat. I like this.
I think I did send it to a couple of festivals, but like for a while. But festivals, I mean, I don't know how they are now, but back then, like 2011, they were like, the movie was only supposed to have a certain like age when it was released, like a couple of months or the same year or something. And after a while, it was like, okay, that movie is from 2011. It's now 2013, and it doesn't pass the requirements anymore. So
yeah,
there's to that.
I like it. Wow.
And I also thought it was like the level it is there is what I wanted from it to be. I mean, I still think there could be a couple of scenes added, to be honest, but actually, after pretty quickly afterwards, I was working on a sequel, which which I actually still do. It goes by the wonderful title of 2E36. So, and I'm slowly getting to the point where I feel that I can actually write the script that I want to write. But that movie, I would like to be also longer, like not just 10 minutes, like maybe 50 minutes or something.
Nice.
And
beautiful.
The soundtrack to it is actually fully done. Like years ago, I did the soundtrack to it already.
For the new one. Do you still have the soundtrack for this? Do you have the music files for this?
Yeah, I have the files. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you only lost the visual files.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Cool.
Although I do see this as it's a finished work, and like I have with that, it's also I closed the phase like when I did that, because the whole soundtrack is done by sampling things like found sounds, like school orchestra recordings, everything I could get my hands on. And also in Germany, we have very interesting sampling laws where you can take a sample from an existing recording if you mutilate it or change it in a way that you don't know where the original is from. So this is all done with sampling, basically.
Okay. All right, let's watch a little bit more of it.
Okay.
Here we go.
Bericht des Forschungsteams, Tage 1 der Landung. Die Landung verlief ohne Zwischenfälle. Wir haben das Basislager in der Nähe einer gigantischen Kristallformation aufgeschlagen. Sie scheinen alles Licht in sich aufzunehmen und reflektieren so gut wie nicht zurück. Ihre Formen scheinen zwar natürlichen Ursprungs, sind aber bei näherer Betrachtung wieder zu regelmäßig. Dann ist da noch das Funksignal. Zuerst hatten wir es nicht bemerkt, aber von der Kristallform geht in regelmäßigen Abständen ein Signal aus. Es scheint in Zusammenhang mit den Sternformen zu stehen, die kurz darauf den Kristall passieren und Energie austauschen. Oder etwas in der Art. Beginn der Aufnahme. Dieser Bericht soll detaillierte Auskunft geben, wie die Expedition gescheitert ist. Nach dem Angriff auf den Jan Simonek gingen wir von einer fremden Intelligenz aus, die den Angriff der Sternform befohlen hat. Jedoch sprechen einige Dinge dagegen. Trotz unserer Kontaktversuche haben uns die Sternformen ignoriert.
Okay. Again, I mean, one of the things that really makes this work is the soundtrack, because it's so well done. And we were just talking about that. So it's partially sampled sounds and partially real instruments. Is that generally how you create your music, or?
Not anymore. Not anymore. At the time, like I never had any formal music training, and
really,
no. So there was this thing in my school where they told us, you can't use any pre-existing music, because if we want to show the movie, the right situation could be a problem. So you either have somebody who does it for you, or like you don't use any music at all. And I thought my problem at the time was I knew people who made music, but it was not the music that I imagined could be in my films. And so that's why I thought, okay, you know what, I'm just going to do it myself.
Wow. So this film is how you pretty much kind of developed your style, because the other music you sent me is very similar.
But now I do everything. Now I do everything myself. Like I also write. At some point, I decided, the problem with sampling for me was that it never really felt like my music. I had to take samples that were pre-existing. I mean, of course, I changed them, like changed pitch or intervals and stuff, but it never really felt like, okay, this is my music. So, and then I thought, you know what, I should be actually learning this from in a more serious way, and I should learn notation and what the instruments are actually all capable of, and I should approach it from that perspective.
Okay. So the other pieces that you sent me,
Mm-hmm.
How recent are those?
The pieces that are labeled like die drei Abenteurer, the three adventures, those are from 2019. That was it's a soundtrack for a game that was released here that I did.
Oh, okay.
The other one, the Heimfrau, was originally recorded 2015, but it's part of a concert work which I'm currently also revising again. It has been performed 3 times, like every time in a slightly revised version, and I hope to perform it at some point in its fourth.
Okay, because those are all really high quality recordings and very great performances. So those were all real instruments, or was it partly like simulated orchestras or things, or?
So Die drei Abenteurer had very minimal music budgets, and from a couple of performances, I knew a very great cellist by the name of Lee Kasti.
Okay.
She also lives here in Berlin, and I asked her if she would perform, like if we could record it together. And basically, all the cello parts are real. I wrote like multiple cello parts for her that we just overdubbed. The synth parts, this is all like done on the computer.
Okay, let's play a little fragment of that. So let's listen to that right now.
Which piece are you picking? That would be interesting.
Well, why don't you tell me?
Just pick it.
Okay, well,
just pick one.
Okay, now I've got to go find it. I'll have to cut out a little bit here while I find it.
Okay.
So, because I'm on my iPad, so all this.
Yeah. So the cello here is real.
Yeah, I can tell.
All that stuff is all like computer.
Let's just play the whole thing. It's about 2 minutes long. Okay, so there's a lot to talk about. One thing I do notice is that I can tell you're very much fascinated with ambient type of sounds and different textures that can be created by those type of sounds. Are those mostly created with the synthesizer, or do you take an acoustical sound and start to manipulate it and layer it and stuff like that?
It depends. For that, because that theme basically, that's the main theme from the game, and that was the last thing I did. I think I went through 8 different themes basically that all just didn't work, and in the end I thought, it is a kids game, and I thought, okay, the protagonists, there are 3 of them. That's why it's the 3 adventurers. They should have a cool theme basically, and
okay.
So that is what you hear there is mostly like different virtual instruments that I took, and I created filters, and I also sampled a little bit. Like this soundtrack is interesting. I didn't use the sampling techniques that I developed for like stuff like Die Reise zum E36 for over 10 years, and for that game actually I thought I could actually sample my own stuff. So there were a couple of instances where I took the cello and did a couple of things with it while also using the original recording just in its normal form, and just to give it a little bit of something else. And it's a mix basically.
Okay. Interesting. Because you say you don't have any formal training, and then are there any instruments that you play that you consider yourself an expert at?
No.
It's very
I mean, I
interesting.
can play piano. I had 7 or 8 years when I was a kid. I don't like to perform in public. Recently, I had to perform in public. I don't like it very much. I usually am more of I write it, other people can play it.
Okay, so you don't consider yourself a professional musician yet. It's obvious that you have a very refined ear and sense of hearing and sense of quality, because there's so many layers of the textures and the sound quality and the engineering and all that that's so good, you know?
Thank you.
And like you experiment with different modern techniques, different types of dissonances and stuff. I mean, I can hear it all in there. I know it because I'm a composer, right? So even though I don't tend to compose what you would consider modern music, I'm very much aware of it, and I know the techniques and stuff. And so when I hear it, I'm like, whoa, that was really neat. And of course, I'm always like, how did he do that? You know, and things like that. And what I hear, the thing that makes your music so interesting is that there's a great depth to it, right? It's not like, oh, that was a cool gimmick, or that was interesting. No, there's many layers to it, and there's like an overall cohesiveness to it, and an organic quality to it, even though I think what you're saying is most of it's created through sampling and created electronically, but it doesn't sound hollow. It's got a very organic quality to it, and that to me makes it more interesting and like makes me want to listen to it over and over and want to dig deeper into it. And that's the mark of what I consider great music, is that you just want to keep going farther and farther into it and discover more and more about it, you know? So there's I guess it's all just innate talent, you know?
I also listen to a lot of music, so I get inspired from a lot of different sources, I would say. It's a mix of things. Like sometimes it's something that just comes into my head, and like that just comes from me. Sometimes it's like something I hear somewhere, like a little snippet of something, and then that could be developed in this way, and then I just sing it to myself and just go someplace else with it. And like
do you find yourself like listening to everyday sounds? And like what comes to my mind is like, I remember when Star Wars came out, there were so many, part of what made Star Wars so good, of course, the visuals, but then, of course, John Williams' soundtrack was extraordinary. And then also, the actual sound effects in Star Wars were amazing. Like, I really loved the sound of, like, the stormtroopers' blasters, and they'd shoot the sound. I thought was so cool. And then I watched a show, and it turned out the guy who created that sound would go around banging on normal things, and one day he found like a power line or something, or no, it was a tension cable on a bridge, and he banged on it, and it was like, that's a cool sound. And him hitting that metal cable became the sound of
Ben Bird, I think is that Ben Bird is the sound designer.
But
amazing.
That's what makes the sound so cool, is because it has an organic element to it, and therefore it's very complex, that sound. It wasn't digitally produced. It was a real sound that then was digitally enhanced, but it still has all that information built into it because it's a real sound from a real thing. And so, do you find yourself doing that when you're trying to come up with the soundscapes that you're creating?
Sometimes for example, I like the sound that trains make when they pass by, when they have this when they start off with one tone and then it splits into like almost like overtones, like that metallic sound, for example. And I do have that, and sometimes I also try out banging on different things. I haven't used any of those because I don't have a recording device for that, and you also have all the background noises basically here. So because that would be an entire different field to really go into, and I feel writing music already is a very big topic. So I get inspired sometimes by stuff that I hear, like sounds, and I think, oh, how could that be translated musically? But I don't record my own sounds.
Interesting. Wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, you can go crazy doing. I remember one day. Sorry, we're going on a tangent, but I remember one day in high school when I was learning about the overtone series from my music theory teacher, and I went downstairs and I had to get some my clothes out of the dryer. And I opened the dryer door and suddenly I heard out of the squeak of the door. And I was like, wait a sec, that's like the overtone series that my teacher just told me about. So I sat there for like 5 minutes, opening and closing the dryer door, trying to hear all the different sounds in it. And the more I did it, the more I heard, in the squeak of the dryer drawer.
I also sometimes have that with doors, actually. It's interesting. Like doors have, especially the squeaky doors, they can have an interesting variety of, like, the way they squeak is very unique, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, boy. Okay. So as a musician and as a composer, are you able to support yourself completely by that, or do you have to have a side job too?
No. It's I also made the choice that at first I tried to make a living from just making art, like drawings or movies or music, or whatever came along. But I think it's a very competitive field, and I felt that you have to really know people, and I don't know that many like influential people around. So I thought, okay, you know what, I'm gonna work, do a normal job as a freelancer, like project based, for a couple of months, and then the rest of the time of the year I can devote for creative things or in between, whatever.
Oh, okay.
So I felt that was better, because then also what I can do is I can organize my own events. For example, a couple of years ago was the last time I organized a concert, and I paid all the musicians myself. So like that's a good way to get my music performed, is like, okay, I hire the people, I go through it with them, and I felt that's actually a nice way as well. So
that's pretty much what I do.
Of course I couldn't hire an entire orchestra, for example. That would be prohibitively expensive.
So what is your day job? So what's your financial base, let's say?
Well, I do work for some like as a freelancer for IT basically, and currently I'm working on a project in Berlin schools till August.
Okay.
So, and then
yeah, I'm an IT guy too, though I'm not a freelancer.
I read on.
Yeah, I basically have a day job, 40 hours a week day job, as basically an enhanced help desk type of thing, fixing people's computers. And during the pandemic, most of my team got to work from home, so I still 100% work from home, remoting into people's machines and fixing them. Works out well. Yeah, it's the same thing, and I actually... I like that too. It's basically, I think you know all about this. What you have to figure out how to do is how to really efficiently manage your time and your energy, so that you can have leftover energy and time to do your art, right?
Yeah, that at the moment is pretty hard actually, to get that balance really working.
Right.
I mean, yeah, that I'm working, like currently I'm working on some piano pieces, which is nice. Just something to get back into it, because after I did that game soundtrack, because the development time was so protracted, and I didn't only write the music in the end, I also ended up writing the screenplay, recording the actors, doing the sound design and everything. And I felt creatively completely burned out for a couple of years. Yeah.
When was that? How long ago was that?
The game came out in 2019, but I mean, not many people played it actually. It was released on a website, and we weren't able to, we weren't supposed to make any money from it because it was government funded, and it was on a website. So yeah, 2019. Then I was working in IT in the city administration, and then due to international health event, I stayed there a bit longer than I initially wanted, but it was good because it was really problematic for freelancers during that time. So
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like see, I mean, in a lot of ways, on one hand, we have the problem of that we like to devote more of our time each day or each week to our art. But we can't because we have to do our day job, you know. But on the other hand, we're not dependent on our art creating enough money for us to survive. So we have great freedom to do whatever we really want with the art, you know. You don't have to make any compromises to make it, quote, marketable, right?
Yeah, that's what I also prefer. Although at the moment I feel a bit like I would like to basically just devote more time to making art again. That would be nicer, because the day job is kind of exhausting.
Yeah.
As well. It's a choice between two. What do you prefer? Like having to live off your art, and I mean, I know a lot of people here, especially here in Berlin, who do very avant-garde and experimental things. Great musicians, and I mean, they can make a living from it to an extent.
Yeah. There's lots of ways to do it. I mean, of course, like you could try to get a professor job at a university, but that has its own problems, because then you have to play the whole politics game, and then you have to behave and talk and create art that's within the confines of whatever is considered acceptable or the cool thing to do. And then you realize that, well, that's its own little bubble too.
I don't know that much about that because I never went to any conservatory. There is a composer here I do follow who has a blog. He goes by the name of Moritz Eggert. He's an internationally known German composer, and he writes about that. About conservatories, and where, like, because some people complain about that you're only supposed to write dissonant music when you're in a conservatory, and where he just says, well, no, actually that's not true. I mean, we do teach all the techniques, fortunately.
Right. Well, I know the way it used to be, I think things have actually changed in the past several years, and I think largely probably because of the Delian Society and also the internet, where there was a bit of a revolt against complete atonalism, or always having to write something that's considered avant-garde. Now you're allowed to write stuff that's a little more old-fashioned, or maybe a little more approachable to the general public.
I mean, we live in a time where I guess you could say, thanks to the Second World War, in quotation marks, and that impact it had on culture, especially European one, like where a whole continent broke with its culture for a while. For example, Germany did that. Like everything that was considered good before 1945 had to go out of the window. So all the culture, like all the composers from before were suddenly kind of like, no, this is too nationalistic. We have to find a new voice. And now we live in a time where I think Christoph Penderecki once said this, like the boundaries of what is considered music have been pushed so far out that, where do you want to go from here?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there will be new ways to go, of course, but at the same time, you're looking back at all the things that were before, and then why abandon them? We live in times of like polystylism, where you can draw on this immense human knowledge, basically, also thanks to the internet. You can listen to like old recordings. You can, there are websites dedicated to scores which are in the public domain. And why waste that? And if you want to write music like that, then go ahead.
Yeah.
Or if you want to use it to be inspired by something, and say, oh, okay, I find this interesting, but I would like to add something new to it, because I feel some of the cadences are, it's off their time, it's out of its time, and you just, why not?
Yeah. Neat.
Hmm.
All right. Well, okay. So let's talk about this piano piece you're working on then.
Okay.
Yeah. So how could you describe what you're going for with it?
It's actually, I don't want to talk that much about it as a present for somebody.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, maybe we can, but I can talk about other piano pieces, no problem.
Okay.
The thing is, with my piano stuff, what I just usually go for is just like little ideas where I try out something like interesting harmonies or progressions, textures, basically. It's just something, or also because I do like writing for the medium of film, like for a narrative medium, because I think music is very good at supporting narrative. So with piano pieces, I just go for, oh, what about this emotion? How could I convey that? And that's usually what I experiment on with like these little piano pieces. They're, in a way, they're like little paintings or like a little story.
Okay. You didn't send me any MP3s of those, though. Is there any?
No.
Is there any recordings
I have some
out there?
I have some on my SoundCloud. Yes, I
Okay.
have a playlist on my SoundCloud. I can send it to you later, or should I do it now?
Yeah, maybe. Send it to me, and we'll just edit out, and then send me one, and we'll listen to it, and then we can talk about it.
Okay, wait. It's. I just send it to you via mail.
Sounds good.
Quickly.
Well, it shows me things played on black and white keys.
Yeah, that's the playlist, basically.
Okay.
Oh, first one.
Excuse me. Okay. Despite the fact that it's just one instrument, which is a piano, I can still hear that Bensenian cosmic expansiveness.
Okay, that is.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like you play a chord, and then it looks like hardly anything on the page, right? But then you linger upon it, and you get to hear all the overtones and everything just kind of mix and fill up all this vast space.
Mm.
And then you get to hear the next, right?
Yep.
So is that what was going on in your head when you wrote it?
I wrote it in autumn. That's also the title, like Seasons of Mists and Mellow Fruitfulness. I think that was from, I don't know if it's a Keats poem, I'm not sure. It was from somewhere that I got the title. And I still am. I'm very fascinated by quintal stacks, and it's really something that I think you can really create very interesting like textures out of. Very open.
Okay, hold on. So you said quintal stacks?
Yeah, the quintal pyramid. I forgot. Sometimes I have problems with names. What was the name of this? When you stack perfect fifths, basically. What was the name of this? I forgot.
That makes sense to me. So a perfect fifth, I mean, for non-musicians, a perfect fifth is whenever you have one note and then you play another note, the space in between those two notes is called an interval. And a perfect fifth is the name of an interval where the frequency of the sound has a ratio of 3:2. So like if you do a 200 hertz sound and then you do a 300 hertz sound, you'll get what we call a perfect fifth, which is basically bum, pa, bum, bum, pa. That's a perfect fifth. So what Florian is saying is when you take those fifths and you start stacking them upon each other to create chords, if you want to call it that, that's a lot of interesting things start happening. So that's how you created the chords in this piece. Stacked fifths.
Mostly. Yeah, stacked fifths mostly. Also sometimes different, there are also some different intervals in it. I don't have the piece right here, the notation, so I don't really remember all the stuff I did in it.
Okay.
But it's mostly like, what do you call it, from the cycle of fifths, basically. And then I had, that was the name I was looking for. Then I have I used a certain system of how the intervals are progressing.
Okay.
Using a lot of augmented fourth intervals to say, okay, this moves from here to here, and then it moves from there to there. So yeah.
Okay.
I was trying to make how can I create a melody with that?
Okay, but there weren't a lot of tritones in the actual chords. It was when you played one chord and then you played the next chord, the distance between those two chords was a tritone?
Yeah, it was a tritone, yeah.
Okay, tritone is another name for an augmented fourth, which is another name for a diminished fifth. That's just three different ways of saying the same thing. Unless you want to argue about whether a diminished fifth really is an augmented fourth. You can have a long discussion about that too. Yeah. So, all right. So, like when you created this piece again, was it all purely an intellectual exercise where you wanted to stack these mathematical ratios together, or were you actually engaging your ear and listening to what you're created and then reacting to what you're hearing?
I think I was in a very... it was not very intellectual when I made it. It was mostly, no, it was not. I mean, of course, there was the basis of the system, but it's sort of like you have to repeat all the 12 notes before you play one. It can be very intellectualized, and then you go into serialism, or you can just say, well, just try things with this. So you have an intellectual basis, but the rest you just improvise on that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I did with that, because it's not always tritone intervals. I just went with, okay, here this sounds better. And I wanted to create an atmosphere that had a quality of autumn, basically.
Right.
So that was it.
So that flies in the face of Schoenberg and those surrealists who decided must always avoid that. You should always try to go against what your musical instincts tell you to do, because you've been brainwashed to think that things are supposed to be a certain way, and you must avoid that and free yourself from that. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that's all horseshit. From my point of view, but so of course I think in the end
you should go for what you want to go. But
yeah, I mean it creates in a way it's freeing, because because you're going completely against your instincts, you may create some new exotic thing that nobody has ever created before, which it did, right?
Well, you mean in the case of Schoenberg now?
Yeah, and just the whole surrealist movement.
I mean, I really love actually serialist and 12-tone music. I'm a very, very big fan of that, actually. And I do see there's a lot of very interesting things to learn from it. I think I tried writing a 12-tone piano piece at some point, but it just didn't work out for me, really, or it didn't give me anything. So I didn't really feel like I want to go that way, really. To me, that thing felt a little bit too intellectual, but I do like the music. I'm a huge fan of Christoph Penderecki, for example, or Luigi Nono. So there's or George Ligeti, for example, talking about 2001 from earlier. That's actually my first. As a kid, my parents had the 2001 soundtrack on LP, and I had a little LP player as a kid, and I thought, oh, the cover looks nice, and I put that stuff in when I was 5 or 6 or something, and was blasted by George Ligeti's Requiem. So,
and then the different Strausses and everybody else.
I think as a kid I was going more for Strauss, but afterwards over the years I got more and more into like, oh, the other stuff is actually really interesting.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's cool. All right, let's find another piece. If I can get it to do it. So if I press this, is it going to show me the next one?
Oh yeah, that one.
Okay. Oops, stop. So again, that one used a lot of fourths and fifths, and so that piece struck me as being very simplistic, almost kind of like Satie in a sense, where like the. So tell me what you were going for with that one.
It's based on a dream I had, also about autumn and the leaves changing colors. And I had this dream that there would be I think it was in the dream, it was kind of like a robot that was built by somebody, and that robot would go and paint the leaves in different colors. And we had to paint all the all the leaves basically, and sort of that's what the music is. So it's a very childlike dream, and so I thought the music that go with it should have a very childlike quality.
Exactly. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what I got out of it. Just nothing too profound at all. Just toss out, describe
No,
a
I
scene,
think
call it good. Yeah.
most of the pieces from that playlist were basically things where I thought I'm going to make a song each day, and whatever it is, I just go with an idea. And I think that day, it was also a while ago, that was the dream I had, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to do that then. So
Great.
it was
Cool. All right, let's try and see what else it's going to show us. Okay. So what was that all about?
I mean, the title Death Rides, or an Icelandic Döðin that's from a poem. It's a little, only two stanzas basically. It's Mánin líður, Döðin ríður. So the moon is gliding while death is riding.
Wow.
And I read that, and then I thought, okay, how would that sound?
Wow.
Out comes that piece. The opening melody, though, it's because originally the piece started as something else. Also from that Facebook group, like a long time ago, somebody asked, he wanted to make a collaboration quartet with 4 composers basically, and each one was supposed to write a different movement. And it was based on I think 4 notes from, I think it was a string quartet by Shostakovich.
Oh.
Dun, 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 dun. So that's where the piece actually originated from. Yeah.
I was going to say, we weren't hearing a lot of fourths and fifths anymore. Now we're hearing more dirtier intervals.
Yeah.
Neat. Okay, well, we could go on for hours like this, but maybe we should wrap it up. We've been almost hitting the 90-minute mark. So let's have you send me the links. You've sent me some stuff, but anything that you want to promote, I think we should put like a link to the journey to E36 for sure. We'll put down there, and then I can put a link to your YouTube channel too from some of your other stuff.
I'll just send you my SoundCloud and YouTube basically.
Okay, we'll put that down there.
Post the most. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, yeah, this has been fun. It's a great discussion. In other news, have you watched the latest Orville season 3? Are you a fan of that?
I haven't seen any of the Orville actually.
Oh, you should. You're into Star Trek though, right?
Yeah, but I have this like with a new Star Trek. I kind of stopped watching it. I think the Discovery I watched until the second season, and then I thought somehow I didn't get anything out of it anymore.
I highly recommend that you watch the newest Star Trek, which is Strange New Worlds.
I heard of it.
It's really good. Yeah, it's back to everybody saying, "Oh, finally, this is Star Trek again." So it's got. You watched enough Discovery where Anson Mount showed up as Captain Pike, right?
Yeah.
It's a spin-off from that.
I heard that.
And
My problem with Discovery was not like the choices they made. It was more, for me, Star Trek was always an ensemble show where each of the characters gets highlighted, and I felt Discovery was just like a one-person show of what was her name, Michael Burnham.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just everything is relating to her, and what about the other characters? It's you have somebody here and somebody there. I didn't remember any of the names after a while, and then I just felt, okay, why am I watching this? Michael Burnham isn't that interesting. So
yeah, that was a big criticism of Discovery, and they finally learned that, and so in season 3 and 4 it's become more of an ensemble show now. But
it's nice.
Out of the gate, Strange New Worlds is an ensemble show.
Okay.
Like they've done 5 episodes now, and you already feel like you know a whole bunch of the bridge crew.
So, that's nice.
And it's very well done. It's excellent.
I mean, I just finished a couple of weeks ago. I finished watching The Expanse finally.
Oh yeah.
I love that show. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for me, it's maybe also I'm getting more and more into like the hard sci-fi stuff, to be honest, and with a couple of like Star Trek and its spin-offs that it creates, it feels like it's more and more of the same. And I mean, now they're also going with this like revival of they're bringing back like characters from
you'll like it. I'm pretty sure you'll like Strange New Worlds. I mean, I totally love it. Also, this show, The Orville, season 3 is really good.
I heard a lot of good stuff about it. Yes,
I mean, I literally cried. I just watched the first episode, and halfway through I was crying, and I kept crying through the whole thing. It was that good, you know. Of course, I knew I was invested in all the characters because I'm really into the show. But I highly recommend it. You ought to check it out. So, and it's probably you have to watch it on Disney Plus in Germany because you don't have Hulu, do you?
No.
Yeah, then Disney Plus. Look for it.
I'm not a too big fan of Disney, so.
No, it's good. It's worth watching. Okay. Definitely worth it. Cool. All right, Florian, we better sign off. So, send me any pictures that you'd like me to include up here, and any other things, and we'll insert clips and stuff, and it's all really good. It's great to talk to you. So
it was really lovely.
I'll bring you back on the show again. We'll talk some more next time too.
That would be fun, yeah.
All right, take care, sir. And you do know about this, right? Live long and prosper.
Of course I do.
Get that thumb out there.
I'm sorry.
Live long and prosper, my friend. How do you say that in German?
Oof.
Oof. Did I say that
Leben
right?
Sie, no. Leben Sie lange und leben Sie. There are many translations for it, so it's like it would be like Leben Sie lange und zufrieden.
Leben Sie means live. You should live, right?
Yeah, Leben Sie lange. Lange is long.
Leben Sie lange.
Und Zufrieden.
Zufrieden.
Yeah. Like in happiness or in content.
Okay, say it one more time.
Leben Sie lange und zufrieden.
Leben Sie lange und zufrieden.
Very good.
Pranakasha production. Fantastic creations emerging spontaneously from the space of life. For the benefit of all beings everywhere. We gotta change.